Gary Thomas is a best-selling author, international speaker, and writer-in-residence at Second Baptist Church in Houston. He joins us today to share the one word that can radically change a couple's love and passion in marriage from lukewarm to red hot. Gary, good to see you today on Skype here, and let's get right to the million-dollar question. What is the one word that you're talking about?
We're talking about cherish, and it's something that most of us promised that we would do in marriage. The vows go, I promise to love and to cherish until death do us part. And it dawned on me that while I focused for 2 decades on loving my wife and writing about love and explaining what love means, I'd never really taken seriously the promise that I would also cherish my wife. And that adds a new dimension to the relationship.
Well,
love is the commitment, the sacrifice, the service, absolutely essential for a marriage. But cherishing is what makes it delightful instead of just a duty. It's about adopting a certain mindset, heart, and attitude toward our spouse that I believe can take our marriage to a whole new place.
So it's a little difference between, like you said, the commitment and then maybe the passion. You know, it's like the old saying, we're commanded to love everyone, but we don't have to like everyone. But in our marriage, that friendship, that fun has to be there.
Absolutely. I think it's so easy to stop that if we're still with someone, we're still technically loving them if we haven't abandoned them. I'm just thinking of a church, mega church pastor, wonderful guy, had 7 of his leading men with him. And these were all men who were part of marriages that most people in the church would look up to and say, we wish we had a marriage like they did. And the pastor just kind of checked out. He said, how many of your wives, there were 7 men, how many of your wives love you? Every hand went up. And then he said, how many of your wives like you? Every hand went down. And basically what that tells us is that every one of those husbands feel loved.
Yeah.
None of them feel cherished. And I don't think that creates the kind of marriage that honors God. I don't think it creates the kind of marriage that we were designed to have with each other. And I don't think it's the kind of marriage that really models to our kids what marriage is supposed to be like. Love is important, but absent cherishing, love can start to feel like a duty instead of a delight. The way I look at it is love is sort of the bread. It's the nourishing part. It's what gives us nourishment. Cherishing is like the jam. It's what makes it tasty and delicious and fun.
So, Gary, what are some simple ways that, as you're speaking to people today, that we can cherish one another as husband and wife? And does that look differently for the man as it does for the woman?
Well, I think there are a lot of principles that work for both husbands and wives. There are dozens I could pick from, but one when I talk about first, it's remembering that we made that promise. Some people might put off the call to cherish, just saying, well, you know, as long as I'm loving him or as long as I'm loving her, can you really ask for more than that? But when I remember it's what I promised to do, then I realize that cherish is an obligation. It's not just something I could choose if I want to be a particularly special spouse. The second thing is that we can adopt a certain mindset that I call going back to the Garden of Eden. You think about why Adam and Eve had such a great marriage. In part, is because there was a brief slice of time when Eve was literally the only woman in the world. There was no one that Adam could compare her to. He couldn't say, well, she's not quite as smart as this one or as funny as that one or whatever of compared to this one. She defined what a woman was to Adam, and Adam defined what a man was to Eve. And just talking to married couples, you know, comparing your spouse's weaknesses to another spouse's strengths, it never makes you happier. It doesn't improve your marriage. It doesn't make you feel better about anything. It just kind of tends to leave you blah. So it's adopting this mindset that I'm going to let this woman be my Eve. I'm going to let this man be my Adam. I'm going after what Song of Songs 6:9 says. The husband speaking to his wife, my dove, my perfect one, is the only one. Because I've chosen her as my wife, I'm going to look at her that way as my Eve, as the only one I will look at that way. And some might say, is that even realistic? And I'd say not only is it realistic, for most of us, it's already happened. As a pastor, I stand next to a lot of men who are in front of a church watching the bride come up the aisle. And I got to tell you, when those back doors of the church open and she's marching up the aisle, we're all background furniture to him. We're in black and white. Mm-hmm. She's in living color. She is, at that moment, the only woman in the world, the only one he's thinking about. And what I'm trying to suggest is we should make that a daily reality, not a once-in-a-lifetime commitment.
Gary, we've got just a minute left. One thing you talk about in Cherish is allowing the beauty of your wife to be the plumb line for yourself. So speaking to the men today, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's a prayer I began praying early on in my marriage, and I'd never really heard anybody pray it. Frankly, I just think it was a gift from God, but I prayed just what you said. Lord, let my wife, Lisa, define what a beautiful woman is for me. And it's a prayer that God has loved to answer because God wants his daughters to be adored. I get tremendous satisfaction because I get to live with a woman that I believe is the most beautiful woman in the world. And here's what I love about it. Now that my wife and I are entering our 33 years of marriage, my definition of the most beautiful woman in the world ages with my wife. And that leads to satisfaction. It leads to my wife's fulfillment, knowing that she can still stop my heart. That verse, Song of Songs 6:9, still holds true. She's my dove, my perfect one, my only one. And I think that's a gift that men can give to their wives, that we still have this sense where she can stop our heart at any stage in our marriage. It gives our wives a certain power over us that I believe God designed them to have, to fill out the relationship. So I do believe that that's the kind of taste that can be cultivated. When you look throughout history, there isn't one stereotype of the most beautiful woman, and that's really what the Song of Songs is all about. When they talk in poetic language, it's not factually true, but it is relationally true. In this sense, no woman can be the most beautiful woman in the world, but a wife can make us feel like she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And that's what we're after in marriage. And that's what it means to cherish our wives.
Gary, thank you so much for joining us today. And I would love to get you out here sometime to really dig into this because it's great, great stuff. To connect with Gary Thomas, you can go to garythomas.com, or as always, go to our website, harvest-tv.com. You'll find an easy way to link back to Gary's site and pick up a copy of Cherish, the one word that can radically change a marriage. We'll be back in just a minute.